Please form. Pose. Present arms. Right face. Mark time, march. Forward, march. Mark time, march. Hard, fall. Left face. Present arms. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Order arms. Right face. Arc time, march. Forward, march. Mark time, march. Guard, up. Left face. At ease.
In the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, amen. Our Father,
who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us.
and lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Amen. Father, Son, Holy Spirit, amen.
Mr. Mose, distinguished members of the St. Thomas Academy faculty and staff, guests, fellow alums, 2016-2017 St. Thomas Academy Corps of Cadets. Good morning. Thrilling for me to be back at St. Thomas Academy for another St. Thomas Academy homecoming. My name is Joe Jansen, St. Thomas Academy class of 1983. It's my honor and privilege to serve as a president of the St. Thomas Academy Alumni Association. The group of gentlemen assembled behind me this morning are past presidents of the Alumni Association and past recipients of the Hames Alumni Honors Award. Since 1969, the St. Thomas Academy Alumni Association has honored a member of our alumni community who exemplifies the ideals of St. Thomas Academy, and in doing so distinguishes himself in his own community. Such alumni enrich the lives of those about them through their personal and family lives, or their professional occupations, or their civic leadership, or human welfare activities, or their intellectual or cultural pursuits, or their efforts to advance the goals of the Academy. In presenting the Hames Alumni Honors Award, St. Thomas Academy hopes the example of the alumnus so honored will be a source of edification and encouragement to alumni, students, and their communities we all serve. Our 2016 recipient is Father T. Michael McNulty, S.J., a graduate from the class of 1958. After graduation from the Academy, Michael earned an undergraduate degree from St. Thomas College, now known as the University of St. Thomas, a PhD in philosophy from the University of Minnesota, a Master's of Divinity with distinction from Weston School of Theology in 1973. Michael was ordained a priest in the Society of Jesus, June 3rd, 1973. Michael is a lifelong educator, spending 30 years teaching philosophy at Marquette University, with a stint at St. Joseph's University. Michael's service to his community includes numerous publications, book reviews, and editorial work. Justice and Peace Director, Conference of Major Superiors of Men. In addition to his impact on scores of undergraduates at Marquette University and St. Joseph's University, Michael McNulty is a recognized force in the academic and Jesuit communities for the inclusion of justice and peace considerations in contentious national and international issues. Michael currently holds the position of Scholar in Residence, Marquette University. In his role, he is the faculty liaison, promoting the academic profile of the Center for Peacemaking, encouraging research and promoting collaboration with the local church and the Jesuit Providence. One of Michael's STA classmates said, "Michael could have done anything with his immense intellect, but his vocation was strong and he chose the lifelong task of teaching the faith and serving the poor and victims of our society. His selfless nobility deserves public recognition." Today we recognize Father T. Michael McNulty as the 2016 recipient of the St. Thomas Academy Alumni Association Hames Alumni Honors. Please give a St. Thomas Academy homecoming welcome to Michael McNulty, class of 1958.
Thank you all. Old habits die hard. As I was walking up here, I was asking myself, are my shoes shined? Don't worry about this speech. It's really large type. I want to thank St. Thomas Academy, the Alumni Association, and the Hames Committee for the great honor that they have bestowed on me in selecting me for the Hames Alumni Honors Award. The roster of previous honorees is so impressive that joining my name to the likes of Herb Mischke, Emmett Murphy, Jerry Brown, Wally Kurtz, Michael Connell, and so many others makes me humble indeed. I want to thank my parents who insisted that a reluctant 8th grader take the entrance exam for the Academy. And I want to thank my sisters, Kathy and Sharon, both of whom are here today, for their love and support over many years. I'm grateful to my classmates for support and friendship over the last 60 plus years. It says good things about the class of '58 that we have remained a community over so long a time. But when Tom Steele first contacted me last February to ask if he could nominate me for the Hames Award, I was reluctant. I'd never thought of myself as a candidate for such an award. I suspect that I share that feeling with many others who have received this great honor. So I take no credit for having earned it. That others have thought me worthy to receive it is a huge gift. I did not come from an Academy family. In fact, if it had been up to me, I would have gone to De La Salle with all my 8th grade friends. Now that's not so terrible, at least it wasn't Cretan. But my grandmother Mason had a different idea. She had bought war bonds during the Second World War with the express purpose of paying for my tuition at St. Thomas. She didn't have any particular tie to the place, she just thought it was a good school. So with that support and some hand-me-down uniforms from Joe and John Cernett of the classes of '51 and '53 respectively, who lived across the street, I started at the Academy in the fall of 1954. The only person I knew was Brian Leo, with whom I had done grade school. Jim Carthus was the first person I met, and I was the first person he met. We are still close friends. I was introduced to an amazing group of teachers. You've heard their names before, but I can't refrain from expressing my gratitude to them. Aristotle said that if you want to be a virtuous person, find someone who is virtuous to imitate. I was extraordinarily fortunate in those who educated me during those years. Joe O'Brien taught me how to write. Jim Keane taught me how to read. Jack Campbell taught me how to think. Cy Turbes gave me an understanding of where I came from. And by the way, Matt Mose bears a striking resemblance to his grandfather. Fred Gatto, Bucky Olson, and Leroy Brown nurtured my love of science. Prof. Olson also made a mercifully brief attempt to teach me tennis. Father Robert Bullock introduced me to the riches of Catholic social teaching, which has been such an important part of my life. And Wally Kurtz taught me how to be a decent human being. I was originally scheduled to have Art Martin as my senior English teacher, but I was dating his daughter at the time and thought that might be a little too intense. So I switched to Wally's class. Wally was also advisor to the yearbook, of which I was the editor. He had an enormous influence on me. After graduation, I went on to college, now the University of St. Thomas, majoring first in physics, then in mathematics. My classmates may not know that I was myself briefly a teacher at the academy. In December of my senior year in college, Wally Westline, who taught the junior and senior math classes, became ill, and I was asked to fill in for him. I was to teach what was called the Bonehead Trigonometry class, made up of seniors who were allowed to take the class on their solemn oath that they would never take another math class as long as they lived. Let me just say that my performance would not have put me in the running for a Miser Award. After graduating, I went on to graduate school at the University of Minnesota, and after my first year, I received a fellowship to study in Berlin, and it was there that my life took a completely unexpected turn. My life plans at that point were, shall we say, indefinite. But that all changed on May 17th, 1964, at 2:15 in the afternoon. I was lying on my bed in the student village in Berlin reading a novel, From the Terrace by John O'Hara, when I suddenly realized that I had decided to become a Jesuit. No lights, no fuss, just the quiet and settled decision that I would enter the Jesuits when I returned to the United States. I had never met a Jesuit and had only the fuzziest idea of what they were. I even went down to the America House Library in Berlin to get out a book to find out what it was I decided to do. It was a grace-filled moment where God began me on a course to what has been a very happy life, if a very unpredictable one. When I was at the academy, I would never have thought that being a companion of Jesus would lead me to teaching philosophy at Marquette University and the Jesuit University in San Salvador, to pastoral work in the mountains of Peru, to advocacy work in Washington, D.C., or to Marquette's Center for Peacemaking. Being a Jesuit leads to adventures. While in Peru, in a mountain village of about 1,800 people with 6 water faucets, I would go out on horseback to little settlements much higher up in the mountains to do weddings and baptisms and memorial services for the dead. After one such visit, we set off back down the mountain at night. I never did find out why we needed to make the trip in the dark. Along a narrow trail, where to my left, the only thing between me and the first bounce was about 7,000 feet of air. Our guide, a 12-year-old boy who, interestingly enough, was walking behind us, kept saying, "Don't worry, Padrecito, the horse can see." Jesuits are committed to education in the United States, and there are many stories about Jesuits, often populated with Franciscans and Dominicans as foils. Imagine that a Jesuit, a Franciscan, and a Dominican are transported back to Bethlehem when Jesus was born. The Franciscan falls to his knees, overwhelmed by the holy poverty of the scene. The Dominican begins to give a learned sermon on the mystery of the Incarnation, while the Jesuit takes Mary and Joseph aside and, putting his arms around their shoulders, says, So have you thought about where to send the boy to school? There are many excellent Jesuit high schools, but I have to say I would not trade my academy education for anything. My present work at the Center for Peacemaking at Marquette University is in some ways a natural culmination of my life trajectory. I have to say here that I told Jerry Brown that the irony of having a scholar in residence of Marquette's Center for Peacemaking receive a pass and review from the Corps of Cadets should not go unremarked. The promotion of nonviolent peacemaking, which I need to emphasize means much more than just refraining from violence, is in some ways the most satisfying work I have ever done, and I am grateful to God for having led me to it. I want to leave you with some words of Pope Francis at the World Youth Day gathering in Krakow last summer. Dear young people, we didn't come into this work to vegetate, to take it easy, to make our lives a comfortable sofa to fall asleep on. No, we came for another reason, to make a mark. My friends, Jesus is the Lord of risk, of the eternal more. Jesus is not the Lord of comfort, security, and ease. Following Jesus demands a good dose of courage, a readiness to trade in the sofa for a pair of walking shoes, and to set out on new and uncharted paths. To take the path of the craziness of our God, who teaches us to encounter him in the hungry, the thirsty, the naked, the sick, the friend in trouble, the prisoner, the refugee and the migrant, and our neighbor who feels abandoned. To take the path of our God, who encourages us to be politicians, thinkers, social activists, the God who asks us to devise an economy inspired by solidarity. The times we live in do not call for young couch potatoes, but for young people with shoes, or better boots, laced. Today's world demands that you be a protagonist of history, because life is always beautiful when we choose to live it fully, when we choose to leave a mark. History today calls us to defend our dignity and not to let others decide our future. The Lord wants to turn your hands, my hands, our hands, into signs of reconciliation and communion, of creation. He wants your hands to continue building the world of today, and he wants to build that world with you. So, my friends, Jesus is inviting you, calling you to leave your mark on life, to leave a mark on history, your own and that of many others as well. End of the quote from Pope Francis. The motto of St. Ignatius in Loyola, founder of the Jesuits, is, in all things, to love and to serve. You are receiving a first-class education here at St. Thomas Academy from dedicated teachers in an environment that fosters leadership. That education will give you the power to change the world. Some of you might be the ones who find the way to end poverty, save the environment, end war. But as the Spider-Man principle states, with great power comes great responsibility. You have the potential to make a huge difference in humankind's future. Don't screw it up. Thank you.
Mike and McNulty, it's an honor for me to present you with the 2016 Hames Alumni Honor Award on behalf of the St. Thomas Academy Alumni Association.